go either way hard, but let me.
Oh, is that another porn?
Oh, yeah.
Video?
It's all,
yeah.
Everything comes back to porn.
Everything comes back to porn. Damn it. It does. There's definitely a video called Either Way Hard from 1995.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, a.k.a. Captain Party.
2026 brings us into our 13th year of podcasting, and we're proud to be here. Thank you to our followers and longtime listeners for voting us Best of the Bay Best Podcast for 3 years in a row, and to SF Film for adding us to the respected list of essential SF winners.
If this is your first time listening, where the hell have you been? But better late than never. We're like if the rap group Salt and Peppa met the show Grace and Frankie and had a baby. And if you don't understand what that means, ask Jeeves. And now, on with the show. Clink! Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. Thank you to our festival sponsors, Standard Deviant Brewing and The Tech We Want. In this episode, we're covering 2 documentaries about family and loss, My Brother's Killer and Time and Water. In both of these interviews, we're joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman of Films Gone Wild. Enjoy. Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. We are Erin and Ange with the Bitch Talk podcast, joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman, editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild. And in this segment, we're going to talk about My Brother's Killer, which is having its world premiere in the documentary Spotlight section. We have 2 guests with us. I'm going to have them introduce themselves so you can recognize their voice. Let's start with our director.
I'm Rachel Mason, and I'm the director of My Brother's Killer.
And I'm Dion Labriola. I'm the editor and also producer.
Which now means predator.
Well,
Producer, editor. I was told that.
yes, that is a new term, but
new term.
in this context, it's a little dodgy.
I know. It's like, don't go to like Weinstein and all those people, but predator is mean a producer, editor who's also a badass. So.
Oh,
well,
okay.
I'll take I'm glad to be a badass, but maybe just badass.
Okay, I know it's true. Okay.
I think maybe workshop that, but
we'll
that's
workshop
fine. Okay. Okay, Rachel, can you please introduce your documentary to our audience who hasn't seen it yet?
My Brother's Killer tells the story of a brutal, unsolved cold case or murder that happened in 1990 in Los Angeles, and it went unsolved for 33 years. And this was such a horrific murder because the young man who was killed was actually dismembered, and his head and feet were found in a dumpster in the most central area of Hollywood you could imagine. If you've ever been to It's actually on the edge of Hollywood, and especially the edge of West Hollywood, which is the gay neighborhood. And Billy Newton, who also went by the stage name Billy London, he was found in this dumpster, and for years it was just sort of like an urban legend. And our film, over the course of 6 years, pieced together different facts to eventually help solve the murder with a bunch of people from the community and the LAPD. So it kind of is a miraculous, as I sit here today, it still shocks me every time that we solved it, but that is the story of My Brother's Killer.
I'm going to start off this way because, of course, we just talked about the fact that I was a big fan of Circus of Books, the documentary about Circus of Books. And when I first watched the film, I was kind of like myself going, holy crap, is Rachel like, there's going to be a series of films that will come out of Circus of Books? like, you know, every couple of years there'll be, and we discovered this, and this, and, you know, and this thing came about, you know, about the thing. Because you kind of could, because Circus of Books was so legendary and such a ground thing that everybody kind of lived and based in so many ways. So it was not surprising that this story kind of found its way around there. That all being said, and you can take that idea if you want, the other aspect of this is that we have so many true crime and cold case things on TV. There's an entire generation of men and women who basically have been weaned and live on these. And so as a documentarian, as a filmmaker, I was like going, I wonder how much of a challenge it was to go, no, we're not doing that. We're doing a different thing. You know, yes, there's that aspect to it, but we're going with a broader scope. So how much was that on your mind to rise above that?
Okay, well, two questions there, and I'll start with the first one because it was so amazing. Exactly what I always hoped, which was, I mean, I will say Circus of Books was a little bit of my personal, like, combative, if you notice, relationship with my mother that continues to this day.
Yes, I can attest to that.
Yes. But it uniquely comes down to gay porn because she was always like, don't go past, like when I was a child, it was like, okay, don't go into the store. And I'd be like, but why? These young guys are fabulous and I love them. And then she's like, don't talk to these guys. They're busy. And I'd be like, well, I have to because I fucking love them. And then, don't go past the swinging doors into the over 18 section. Of course, I'm like, why? What's it beyond there? So finally, there's like, I realized the world of DVDs and videos. And my mom to this day was like, well, nobody cares about those movies, Rachel. They were just made so cheaply. And of course, I was like, yes, they do matter, Mom. I'm going to prove it to you. And so throughout Circus of Books, she would throw movies out. And it was just this constant like sense. And my scene actually that I almost wanted to try to bake into this film. Yes. We tried. My mom was throwing DVDs out in a dumpster and I was so angry. I don't know, I was filming. I was like, let's film this. Because she was just like, look, it all wound up in the trash where it belongs. And I was like, no. You're not going to get to say that in this film, Mom. But I'm going to film it because it's a great scene, but and you're hilarious and everyone knows it. But the reality is I know she also herself didn't fully believe it was trash. And I knew it. And I'm like, I know you don't believe it's trash. But, okay, I'll let you say that because in the world of, like, I'm going to be your Jewish mother who tells you what to do and, like, raises you correctly, all this stuff. And as opposed to, like, the gay porn mom that you really are. So, anyway, I was, like, I had this moment where I just really wanted to prove the value of gay porn. And I constantly would hear different stories about different movies and about different actors and about different interesting people in the porn films. And I just kept thinking, God, if ever there was a great film to be made that could follow this up. And so when this article just emerged out of nowhere, because I do really believe in that, like the universe tells you, like it finds you, you don't find it, like the thing that's next. This article came up and I just was like, so freaked out. I was like, this is not okay that, an article literally like fell out of a binder that I was being shown of gay porn models. A guy named Mickey Ski was like, oh yeah, you can use whatever photos you want here. So I was looking through his binder and there was this article. He's like, oh yeah, I wrote that in the Advocate back in 1990. And I was like, whoa, what? A guy got beheaded here in Hollywood, and he worked in porn, and it's not solved. Like, it didn't draw me in because, and to answer the second question, because it was like a true crime thing. It drew me in because I was so angry. Actually, I was so outraged in a strange way. I had like multiple feelings. I was like kind of outraged at the blasé attitude that like he presented at that moment. 'Cause it's like, yeah, it was a hard time, and I was like, a hard time, but that's a beheading. No. But then it was also like, yeah, but so many people were dying in 1990. It was just like, oh. Yeah. So the sense that like
you couldn't keep track of it all.
Exactly.
It was just
thank you.
One more face in the obituaries.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, right, that was just the reality of it at that point.
Yes. And so, I'm a younger generation. Of course, on some level, I was like, well, each and every single person who died mattered. But if you were living at that time and Dion, like going through how many funerals every single week.
Yeah, it was relentless.
Yeah. So he kind of was saying, well, Rachel, there were so many people dying at that time. So in a strange way, like it just grabbed me because it was like, well, this guy didn't just die of AIDS. Not that it's look, I'm wearing my AIDS memorial shirt, but like I care so much about that era, I think, because it just feels to me like we still haven't processed the trauma of it. And Billy's murder, yeah, it was a murder in the sea of horrible deaths. Mm-hmm. So that's where it all started. It wasn't going to ever be a true crime film. It was going to be like, why on earth did this young man's murder go like unsolved? Why no one cared? why it was, a cultural portrait.
Yeah, we really wanted it. Her intention was to make like more of a portrait of Billy. And then when the documentary came out, she was thinking someone out there would see it and come forward with information.
Exactly.
And to be honest, she came to me real early with the idea, because actually we hooked up on Circus of Books because I did the sizzle reel for that. So it all comes back to Circus of Books. So she contacted me to do the sizzle reel for this, and she told me the concept, the idea. I'd heard about the case, and she's like, I want to make this doc, and maybe somebody will see it. And I was like, well, good luck. Because really I was. I honestly was, because I was.
Hopes and dreams are
Well,
great.
for 30 years it's been ignored.
But it's like so many people from back then are dead, and in the gay porn community, all those actors, they're all dead. I'm like, I'm glad to help you, but don't get your hopes up. And here I am, just the asshole.
No, you're also an editor.
She did it.
Well, I will say, no, the thing that Dion did, if it wasn't for Dion, we wouldn't have a film, because this whole film is independent. And, at a certain point, it's just like, how am I going to piece together the finances to do it? And to hire an editor was like the biggest challenge in documentaries. And I had been working on it for years, just sort of puzzling it together, putting the pieces together. And I hadn't actually ever really, I hoped that we would solve it if potentially someone saw this film and years from now but to actually have solved it while making the film, that's what actually happened. The solving of it happened in the middle of this process of doing interviews, meeting people, connecting dots. And at halfway through, Dion was like, Rachel, stop just like pitching this out there, because I was trying to pitch it, I was trying to get financing and it wasn't happening. And Dion was like, I'm going to make this film. We're going to do this together. And I'm just going to dive in. I don't care if you have the funds yet. So that's why this film...
She called me. She's like, do you think we could just do this? I'm like, yes, let's go. I'm ready. We've got all the footage. And that was really what helped us maintain the original vision of doing this portrait of Billy. Because there's a lot of Billy in this film. And I think if someone else had stepped in, it would have been a more... They would have wanted the true crime and the blood and the gore, because there's plenty of that to go around. But we were able to maintain this independence and stayed true to that. And we wanted to make something to memorialize Billy more than anything.
Yeah, and you always remind me the film starts and ends with the reading of a poem that he wrote. And that is like, on what planet does a true crime film ever start and end with a poem the victim wrote and continue that through line? Because he wrote this poem called A Piece of Me, which was so weird because it was not only connected to the way he was dismembered, it was connected to how his murder was solved and all the pieces that people put together. But it's also the artistry of Billy, this young soul who, really had ambitions to be creative and do things. And 100%, I almost now, when you look back and you're like, oh my God, had this film sold to a streamer while we were working on it, and I would have been forced to do network notes, and it would have been insane. It would have been so easy to go straight into a true crime show.
And I thought that I would just be like, okay, thank you, Dion.
We'll take it from here.
We'll take it from here, exactly.
We have an editor.
Yeah.
Your little Dion editor can go, but Dion is the hero of the film. In my mind,
there's a lot of heroes to go around.
But that's true. And in the crafting of this film, also I will say, because gay porn archival is so important, and you understand that world very well.
Well, I think it was more just the archival stuff and finding. Because I have a long history of working on docs and digging up stuff. So just to find whatever you really need. Because Billy was not a huge porn star. He made pretty low budget films that didn't even make it onto DVD. And there was one that we really were trying to find.
Sex Waves 2000?
Oh, that one we still haven't found. If anybody is out there,
Sex
if anybody
Waves
listening,
2000.
Sex 2000.
We're still digging for that
2000, if you have it.
We want
contact
it.
us,
Does that have to
contact
do
us.
with the ocean or sex waves?
What's the storyline?
Yeah.
No,
what's the
actually, no, it's not. There is
Give me the tagline
There
here.
is a sex wave. We have that. No,
Oh, wait, that's not
the
the
one
one
we're
we need.
missing is Sex Drive.
Sex Drive.
Sex Drive 2020. Let's
20.
get that right, just so people can put it in
I
their
fucked it up,
database
yeah.
and try to find it.
Sex Drive 2020
For all
is what
the-
we're looking for, everyone.
Yes,
Okay.
porn collectors.
2000, maybe
And
2000.
there are some
Damn it.
out there.
Sex
should've-
Drive something.
I should have brought my porn notes with me.
As a community, we will find this. I have faith. After watching your film, we can do anything.
Yeah, right?
No, there's a very robust gay porn Reddit thread community that will look for stuff. Oh my God, are you guys in it? It's
No, she's on
okay,
Reddit.
okay,
I
okay.
thought she didn't
Everyone's
do
on
it.
Reddit. Don't put. She points at me like
I
I'm
think
doing
it's called
something.
vintage gay porn, right? It's
Oh,
on
I
Reddit.
don't know.
Oh, okay. But it's
But yeah, there's
awesome.
everything's on the internet, and that's how we eventually found this one film that we wanted on VHS, because there was just some random site that sold old VHS porn. I was like, typed it in and it popped up. I was like, couldn't believe it. Oh, and the most interesting about that film, I was looking through Circus of Books, the film Circus of Books, and there was, there's all this B-roll in the store, and there's one and there it was on the shelf. I'm like, Rachel, your parents have this. What happened to it?
Oh my God,
Oh,
that
she threw
killed
it
me.
away.
Oh my God, the thing that
That's
killed
the thing.
me
It
was
probably was in that
I
dumpster.
see. This is the part about going back to your first question. That that question opened. I always had this feeling because my mom had to get rid of stuff and throw it away, and I maybe I'm just a natural hoarder, but I did keep a lot of the vintage stuff because I was like,
Thank
I cannot,
you.
Yeah.
I cannot get rid of
It's
vintage
history.
magazines.
It's history.
You never
But-
know what's going to come in
Yeah,
handy.
and I had that feeling. I was like, which of these videos am I going to be so pissed went in the garbage? Black Fantasies. And there it was.
That's the one.
Yes. And Dion, I remember you called me in the middle of the night. You were like, I found Black Fantasies. He had freeze framed one of the shots. It was just a gimbal shot, rolling through the store. We had hundreds of hours of footage. It was just wides of panning through the store. And there it was on a
On the
shelf.
shelf.
And I was like, no. And because Billy was in it and had a line, had an actual speaking line. So anytime.
There's a whole story. We'll do
There's a backup
another
documentary
podcast.
on that.
Yes, there is.
Finding his voice was really important for us. And then he had this really sweet. His lines were all very sweet, and you find them, and that's the thing, is that I always wanted these guys to be humanized and real guys, and so that's actually where it started in Circus of Books. When I went to Mickey Ski, whose name is also Mike Szymanski, as a writer, he wrote porn reviews, and I knew that these guys who died of AIDS, I wanted to memorialize in the AIDS section of the film. And going through it, I was like, well, they, the glossy pictures are always so silly in a way, all that olive oil or whatever. But there's got to be somebody that has pictures of them just hanging out or being more like a boy next door, because the world needs to think about each and every person. They might have done some gay porn modeling, but they were a real person, and so Mickey had those photos. So that's where it all started, was in the effort to try to find those guys, because the ones that I met in the store were real, cool, regular people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, we have to wrap. This is very sad because we talk to you forever, but we end each segment with something called This Bitch. So we're going to ask each of you to pick one person, entity, whatever it is, that's either bringing you joy, you want to shine a light on it, or something that's pissing you off, something you want to just throw shade at.
You go first.
Wow.
I know. I
And
need
you
to
gotta
be
start
prepared.
this bitch.
Ooh. Okay. Let me get. I could go either way, hard, but let me.
Oh, is that another porn?
Oh yeah.
video?
It's all,
yeah.
everything comes back to porn.
Everything comes back to porn. Damn it. It does. There's definitely a video called Either Way Hard
Yes.
from 1995. Both ways hard.
Does it have to be a
And your mom already
does it have
threw
to
it
be a
out.
person
It
with a
doesn't. It could
concept?
be your
It's in the
breakfast.
dumpster.
It
I
could be
Yeah.
South by Southwest. It could be
I'm
whatever.
going to say something really obtuse, but it's this bitch waking up in the morning and jet lag. I am a night owl and I'm on LA time, so please forgive me. I'm usually asleep at this moment. So hopefully when the words coming out of my mouth are actually English.
Oh my God,
But,
you're doing so good, Dion, because Dion at 8 a.m. is not a thing.
No,
I
no,
was texting
that's
him,
a-
I'm like, how are you up at 8 a.m.? Wow.
That was a perpetual thing with working on this film. It's like,
I'm an early
can I
bird.
call you yet? I'm like, yeah, I'm up.
I know. I feel so bad. I'm like, it's 11:32.
And then I would text her.
I've
I'd
been up for
be
hours.
up at like 1 a.m. I'm like,
know.
oh, I can't text her
I'm
right
out.
now.
But weirdly, we managed to get this film done from like 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Our window. Our little window.
The window that you were both awake.
Yes. No, but it works out well because like I couldn't hassle you throughout the day because I'm like not on your schedule and throughout, vice versa. Yeah, no, well, okay, I'll stay on the positive, but I thought of it just this bitch. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Okay, a bitch to shout out that I fucking love and I'm so excited to be able to say is our superstar director of all time, badass EP, Penelope Spheris. Mm-hmm. Shout out, right? Oh my God, I'm not worthy of it. So she and I became friends, and I mean, I still like a full body chill goes through my body when I say that because I have always worshipped her hard. Like her films, The Wayne's World, but even more than that, there's just so few female directors that I could look up to, like in the 80s and 90s and like 2000s, but when I was just like, oh man, funny, like she made all those great comedy, like screwball comedies in the 90s, but also like her history and documentary. She made the original legendary punk rock films, like without which we would not know about all the punk bands of all time. So she's alive and kicking and is the coolest person on the planet. And I happened to meet her for the first time at Cantor's Deli in LA. And she became like my most awesome mentor. And I just like shepherded me through all kinds of stuff that I was experiencing on my last film and in this film and like helping me navigate filmmaking. And I sent her, an early cut of this film and she watched it and gave us these great notes. And I was like, oh my God, I love these notes. These are awesome because she's a brilliant, insane filmmaker and I worship her. And then I was like, should we put you in the thank you credits? Like, that doesn't feel right. And I was like, can I give you a credit? And she was like, so nice about it. Like, oh, you don't have to do that. And I was like, well, what credit would you want? And I was like, well, executive producer would be cool. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, you would be our EP. So Penelope Spheris is our executive producer. And when the film opens, the thing that makes it so badass for me is like, she represents all that was like cool rock and roll LA. And I know that Billy himself was obsessed with music. I know we had this moment where like Billy is got to be like streaming tears of joy right now because he loved Depeche Mode. He loved all the cool bands of that era. And she was like the hippest director of the lifetime he would have been alive. So this film opens with Penelope Spheris, who is like just the badass.
I will second that bitch. Because when she even brought up the name, I was like, I can't even believe I'm working on a film that is connected to Penelope Spheris. I would not have imagined that in my wildest dreams.
Yeah, and it feels like it gives this film like this LA spirit, the punk LA spirit that like it deserves because you kept it so real. It's a DIY film, like it really is.
I'm an old punk rocker, so that was part of the reason I moved to LA is because my favorite punk rock band X was from LA, and they were huge, part of Decline of Western Civilization.
And your X T-shirt, which did you bring it to South by?
I did, yeah. I'm waiting for the right moment to bust it out.
So the shirt of the band X that has like it goes up in flames. I was talking to Penelope about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I set that X on fire." I didn't know that you know that. Okay, it's such a cool story. So yeah. Ending on that bitch is awesome.
Yes.
I love it.
Because we need some cool shit right now in our world, right? Okay.
We do. And when your hero becomes your mentor and your EP, you know you're on the right path too, Rachel. So
I'm gonna cry.
Thank you so much for this film and for solving a fucking cold case 30 plus years later. Again, we've been speaking to Rachel and Dion from the film My Brother's Killer. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
guys. This was our very first podcast and it was so awesome.
Okay. Well, did we cuss enough? Did we talk about enough porn titles?
I tried to cuss a couple times.
Yes.
Just so everybody, because I have a filthy mouth, so I don't want anybody to get the right idea.
I'm with Buck. Have you heard that?
Well, yeah, that's
Test Drive 2020, everybody. Welcome to South by Southwest 2026. We are Aaron and Ange of the Bitch Talk podcast, joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman, editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild. And in this segment, we're talking about the film Time and Water, which is having its Texas premiere in the documentary feature category. And we have a return beloved guest, director Sarah Dosa, with us. Welcome back, Sarah.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here.
Can you please introduce your film to our audience?
Sure. So my film is called Time and Water, and it's the story of an Icelandic poet named Andri Snær Magnusson, who is tasked with kind of an impossible task. He has to write a eulogy for the first glacier to be declared dead to the climate crisis. However, his grandparents, who he loves and worships very much, were some of the first to explore, map, survey, and photograph Iceland's glaciers. And so the film kind of looks at how he's trying to say goodbye to this thing that he never thought he could lose. And we tell his story using his family's archives, as well as a new shooting we did on Iceland's glaciers.
So we had you on for Seer and Unseen years ago, right? And I wanted to know what the connection is to Time and Water. Because I'm like, oh, this girl is going back to Iceland. So what's going on?
I love Iceland. I'm endlessly inspired by Iceland. The nature, I'm inspired by nature anywhere, but there's something about spending time in Iceland, which I got to know most intimately through working on the Seer and the Unseen. Because it's so volcanic, you can really see the forces of creation and destruction in the landscape in a way that was quite new to me as someone growing up in Northern California. And I think some of the lessons about kind of the wildness of the winds, the power of the ocean, the incredible bird life, now the glaciers I've come to know, all of these kind of forces have really taught me just how alive and powerful nature is, and kind of through a new lens. So I think Iceland is just endlessly inspiring for me. But the connection with this film, Andri, aside from being this celebrated poet, he's also one of the leaders of the environmental movement in Iceland. He's a beloved public intellectual. He's just like a wonderful inspiration all around. But he was an advisor on Seer and the Unseen. Once I started making that film, everyone said, you have to speak with Andri Snær Magnusson. And once he gave me some kind of really interesting advice about how to frame the Seer and the Unseen, he became someone whose work I really began to love and whose career I tracked. So once I heard about this specific story, once his book on Time and Water came out, and he published this really poignant and devastating article with the title, How Do You Say Goodbye to a Glacier? That's when I kind of knew I wanted to make this film.
Oftentimes when you say that it's a couple different blatant approaches to making a documentary. One is you have an idea of your timeline and your outline, and you're dropping things in to fit what you're doing. And then sometimes you're just turning on a camera and going, well, let's see what happens. But this one, clearly because of your subject, and because you had the book and you had all these other things, I was assuming, yeah, pretty much. I think we had this thing mapped out, and so that we're dropping in things, which then makes me curious. Is that as the filmmaker, as you're looking for amazing footage, whether in his case this wealth of home video and stuff like that, or whether it be the amazing gorgeous footage of the glaciers and themselves to drop in, if there was something that was elusive, that you said, I need this to make the third act work. I need this, this segment. Was there something that was really that kind of terrorized you to make the whole thing work?
That's a great question. I should say I love that idea of things being totally mapped out. And while we did have some wonderful guides, Andri's book, Andri himself, it was quite a process of discovery the entire way through. Because we had a plethora of materials from Andri's grandparents' archives to then his own archives, and Andri's own archives are his life. He really sought to capture beauty as it was unfolding before him, whether that's his child in the bath as an infant, or a dog doing a funny thing. So quite honestly, his archive is beautiful, but also chaotic, because that's how life is. It's beautiful chaos for so many people. So I'll just say why when we were met with all of these pieces, we didn't actually know how to map it out. We had some guiding principles. We really knew we wanted to kind of bring in this idea of human memory as illustrated through archives in relationship to planetary memory, because glaciers, when you can think of them as an archive of planetary memory, since as it freezes the water, it also into ice, it also freezes air, dust, earth, feathers, anything that is kind of in the water at the moment. So it becomes a time capsule, so to speak. So we really wanted to bring these things into kind of narrative kinship, so to speak. But as we started to sort through the archive and do our own original shooting, the actual process of weaving that together was quite complicated. But I feel really lucky. I worked with two phenomenal editors, Erin Casper and Jocelyn Chaput. And then later, when we found out we got into Sundance and had this really intense time crush, we got to work with another editor, Mark Harrison, who joined our team. So working with such extraordinary storytellers and my larger team in general, of course, guided also by Andre, his writing and his book, I feel really lucky that this collaborative kind of team process was wonderful in navigating kind of the beautiful, messy chaos of this expansive archive itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting that you talk about chaos, because when I watched your film, it's so beautiful, and there's a pacing that's very evocative and calming, and you really parallel this grief. We connect grief with people, but you parallel the human grief with grief of nature so beautifully. It interweaves, and I'm like, oh, I connect to that so much. So I'd love for you to talk about how our memories, they not only allow for things, people and nature to live on, but they also provide a roadmap for our future.
That's such a beautiful question. Thank you for that. We thought a lot about memory, how it can transcend time in this film, how it is tragically being lost with the climate crisis. And at the same time, there's a hope that can remain when we think about ourselves beyond kind of the individual human life. When we think about our ancestors, and when we can think about our future descendants, whether they're blood descendants or chosen family. By doing that, it helps us to connect across time. And I do think that can elicit a feeling of hope in these times of grief. I think that when Andre says this quite well in the film, he does this exercise with his young daughter and his own grandmother, where he asks his daughter to calculate how old she'll be at the age of his grandmother, and the answer is she'll be 96, the age of Andre's grandmother, in the year 2104. And for so many people, 2104 seems like this abstract future. But if you can place someone that you love in the future, all of a sudden the future becomes reachable. It becomes something that you can activate your actions towards in a different kind of way. When you think about someone you love in a world, in Andre's context, in Iceland without ice, all of a sudden the crisis, the violence of the climate crisis becomes so much more immediate. So when you think about this continuity of memory, of Grandma Hulda's memories that began at her birth in 1924, now coursing through her great-granddaughter all the way into 2104, you can see how things can continue on. That doesn't mean to brush away the loss, because it's devastating, and we need to see with clear eyes what we're losing right now. But it also helps, I think, to orient us in a place of agentiveness or agency, rather. So that's something that we were really trying to work with in the film, kind of through these stories of both human memory and planetary memory.
I love with all your films, it's obvious that you want to talk about the climate crisis, but you go through in different ways. So can you talk about this film, the entry point in which you talk about climate crisis, and how you even thought to do that?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel really lucky because Andre, I think, is such an extraordinary communicator on the climate crisis. And one thing that he often says is, when you start talking about the climate crisis, people start to kind of tune out. It just feels kind of like noise at this point. And I don't blame people. We're getting these narratives of apocalypse everywhere: war, genocide, kidnappings. The world is literally on fire. So I have such understanding and empathy for that kind of needing to tune out. for him, he says, when he says, climate crisis, it's that kind of tune out. But when he says things like, oh, I want to talk about time and water, people perk up. That sounds more interesting to them. That sounds more poetic. That sounds more relatable. It sounds a little mysterious, but it provides a moment to engage. And so when he starts talking about time through the lens of his grandparents' memories, or he starts talking about water through kind of this massive ice beast that are glaciers that kind of have a sentience of their own as they move down the mountains, it causes a kind of connection that feels more emotional, and thus it's an entry point to engage. And so that's something we really tried to do with this film, kind of guided by Andre's way, to tell a story about kind of there's a term that I really like that describes the climate crisis, kind of the slow violence. And of course, sometimes the climate crisis is incredibly rapid, but it is this kind of slow building that then, there's these bursts of violence that erupts, so to speak. And so I'll just say, I feel like trying to work with that, but without using terms that might cause people to lean out and say, no, I don't want to go there, but instead can cause people to think about their own ancestors, what they might be losing, as well as what they love and what still remains, their own homes, what they might be losing, but also the beauty and power and meaning of what still remains. So very grateful for Andre in kind of setting that guiding lens for us to work with the material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then the other aspect that I would love for you to talk about is, again, because Andre has so much footage with the home stuff, and he was such an integral part of this. Is when you needed to go, well, we can't use that though, or whatever. And if there were moments where he was like going, I really want you to use this because it's really great. You went, yeah, but I kind of can't. How did that conversation happen?
That's a great question. The working with Andre throughout the process was wonderful. He's an extraordinary collaborator, and we had a really good kind of channel of communication the whole way through. So it was very easy to have those conversations. There's one of my favorite moments in the film is it's a shot of his wife Maka, who is in the bath with their firstborn child Hlynur, and just the expression on Maka's face, she's just radiant and in love with her newborn. Hlynur squeaks in this really adorable way, and you can just sense Andre's own love, his gaze through the camera. But of course, it's sensitive to have, your partner in a bath with a new baby, and you don't see anything aside from her face. But that was very sensitive, and that was something we talked about. And Maka is quite a private person, and she was like, "Yeah, can we maybe tone that down?" And so we ended up finding a way to edit that shot where we cut into a close up of Hlynur's face to have less time on her. So it was things like that where it's we really wanted the moment to stay in the film because it was so meaningful, but of course we wanted to be sensitive and respectful to his family, and so we were able to find the right way where they felt good, we felt good, but there's so much that Andre captured that we wish we could have put in the film, and certainly so many moments too that he would have loved. But my hope is, it'd be amazing to have sequels. You could, I think, make 30 films out of the archives that Andre himself has, as well as his grandparents too. So,
I could watch footage of his grandparents all day. My heart melts. That's like love goals right there. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to wrap soon, but we do end each segment with something called This Bitch. So this is your chance, Sarah, to either shine a light on someone or something that's bringing you joy, or throw shade at something that's pissing you off. So who is your This Bitch of the moment?
Oh God, that's a great question. I think I want to shine some light on my animator, Lucy Munger. Lucy's animation, I think, is absolutely beautiful, and it's so multi-layered. The animation in Time and Water comes in a few moments, but Lucy she works exclusively in paper cutout and collage, and she was able to work with historical archives in Iceland, specifically kind of the Norse myths that people might best know from, Thor and Marvel movies. But she so delicately worked with these words that were first transcribed in like the year 1200 into the textures of her animation. For example, the sea monster, there's a sea monster moment in the film that she creates, and the scales in the sea monster are words from the Poetic Edda, which is kind of the foundational Norse myth of creation and destruction. And I just feel like Lucy shows such love and care and delicacy in her work, and thinks in such a multidimensional way that her animation tied so much together and kind of added this mythic layer to the film that was so needed. So she's here at South by South with us, and South by Southwest with us, and just wanted to give her some love and shine.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a pleasure having you back on. We can't wait till the next film. Again, we've been speaking to director Sarah Dosa of the documentary Time and Water.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to be here.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.